looking back on the spring, how much do you think you got accomplished and got installed beforehand were you?
I think we got quite a bit installed. I mean, not just looking at the spring, but over the 8 months we've been here. I think about obviously you want to be 2 years into it as opposed to 8 months into it. But I don't know what we could have accomplished in 8 months in a number of respects. Obviously, specific to the development side, the weight room, the conditioning side, the accountability side, and obviously the scheme, the football piece. I mean, all that obviously adds up. Is it where it needs to be going into fall camp? I think it's where it inevitably was going to be going into fall camp. So I think we advantaged at that time. I was excited about the spring in so many respects. I thought maybe a little bit, if glass half full, maybe a little bit further along after spring than I thought we would be schematically. Now the issue being is a lot of guys weren't able to take as many reps as we would otherwise hope for in the spring. Obviously, we've added piece over the course of the summer, which is a positive. Specific to the secondary, even I think there's 12 guys. Just as we go through depth, there's 12 guys that either weren't here in the spring, missed reps in the spring, or had off season injury, surgery this summer. That's a lot of guys, and so. And I don't say that the troops are coming and all of a sudden we got 12 guys, it's going to be great. I say that in the aspect there's a period of time that guys weren't able to work on their craft and get better. So point being is we got to make sure that this next month is critical and in terms of enhancing everything that we need to do and fixing some of our issues. It doesn't get any more important in the month of August. So we got to take advantage of it.
Is this maybe the most unusual stretch that you've had as a coach, given the turnover in roster and the fact that you've had guys coming in? What did that look like?
Oh, I think so. I mean, one of the things that being in this situation before and taking over and installing the defense, it's the third time now doing it. You can't fall into in my opinion, you can't fall into the trap of just wait till the new guys get it. Because that can turn into a 2-year period, 3-year period, and some guys don't have an opportunity to be around when those troops do get there type of deal. So, one of the things for us is really making sure that we look at it through the lens of enhancing the individual guys on the current roster. Obviously, we have pieces, some of which come with experience, which is a little bit unique compared to maybe situations in the past when you didn't have the transfers to you. But really making sure that whether it's changing roles, Solo, for instance, move from linebacker to an edge spot, or a safety to a corner, which again, the guys being out have to maybe do that as much, at least going into the fall camp. And then making sure that we got to make sure that we're bigger, faster, stronger over these next number of months. And then every call gets a whole lot better when you get a bigger athlete doing it, a stronger athlete doing it, a faster athlete doing it. So. I think it is unique as it's been. The core philosophy is making sure that the returning players are getting used as we go into this particular season. I think we've done that in a lot of ways, and obviously got to continue to do that. But yeah, thinking you're going to have someone come save us. Not necessarily. I would love for them to come do that, but not necessarily what we think is right.
You made it clear in the spring you guys were going to add transfers to this defense. What are your thoughts on what some of them, like Eric Gentry, Shaw, Carson, some of those guys, what they bring to the personnel side?
Yeah, I think every guy's obviously unique that way. Depending on what experience level they have. Obviously, Carson is a guy we recruited a little bit when we first got here, and obviously decision time was pretty quick on him in terms of going to another institution and making a decision. Obviously, to come here in a relatively short period of time. So excited to add him. And Bryson is a guy that has a wealth of experience in school and football programs. He's played on the biggest stage in the sport, and so that adds value. And the guy I know from my past, and then Eric is a young prospect that we think can be a high level player. different years in school, different experience levels and all those things. But in the end, guys that we think we can add can certainly add value to the defense in 2022. And then because of years left on their clocks, guys that can be in the program for us in a period of time. So we'll get them into the mix. Have already done so over the course of the summer. And get a chance to evaluate them early in camp to see what type of role they can have.
Are there particular stats you look at when you're evaluating the defense at the end of a game or end of a year, like points per drive or anything that you kind of look at is like this is a good measure of if we were successful or not?
Sure. I mean, the number one metric obviously is win by win. If you can do that, then you got a chance to obviously compete for championships, and so that's number one. But we think and we believe this, and the stats would suggest this, is takeaways equal victory. What's the takeaway total over the course of a game? We don't score touchdowns. Obviously, we'd love to, but included in that, if we score a touchdown, that includes a takeaway at some point within that play. And so that's the chief metric that we look at. I always use an example in offense when we look at scoring touchdowns as being extra credit. We don't look at takeaways defensively as being that's the extra. We look at that's the sole purpose when we take the field. And so that's when we've gotten those, our success rate skyrockets as a football program. So that's number one. We certainly look at disruptive plays in terms of TFLs and sacks. It's been a calling card of ours over the years in different places. It's one of the things that everything that we do in terms of our defensive front is to create those. Get offenses behind the sticks to create situations in third down, and that where success rate goes up. And so that's one. It's still, despite as college football's become such a spread game, where the passing yards have gone up, one of the greatest predictors of whether or not offense can run the football. So still number one on the docket is stopping the run. And so that's another metric that we look at. Some games are different than others. How the scoreboard goes over the course of a Saturday, and are the twos going into the fourth quarter, and some of those things. Are you down? Are you up? Are you chasing points? Is your opponent chasing points? And so a lot of times it's difficult just to circle one or two because the game itself kind of can change how the flow of the deal goes and what you're actually defending on a particular Saturday. So, but those are some of them that without anything to do with our offense, what the scoreboard is. Take all that out. You better be able to stop the run. You got to be able to get takeaways and create disruptive plays to get offenses off track.
There was a lot of cross training, I think, by design in the secondary over the spring. How much of that do you expect to bleed into the fall, and when would you kind of like to get everybody to their home, so to speak?
Yeah, we'll continue to do that over the course of fall camp. And one of the things that we like to say, we want to play the best five in the secondary, regardless of quote-unquote position. Now, obviously, certain guys that certain attributes may lend themselves to being, having more success in a particular position over another, or size, or mental aptitude, and that. Safeties make calls, corners listen to calls. So one of the things that for a safety is the ability to communicate that way. So it's not all even. Every guy's just thrown in the pool and you just pull out five guys. But on the same note, we want to make sure that, from a projection standpoint, is just because a guy may be, not a one corner right now, but at some point, maybe, with cumulative reps that can possibly help you at the nickel spot or safety spot. It's a long season, as you go through it. And the other unique thing for us is that mentioned is I think there's 12 guys in the secondary that missed time, weren't here in spring, or just had surgery. And so it's not as if we have a stacking of plays that you can just go back up and watch an individual and say, okay, that guy's going to be this position. So for all these guys, I think it can help them just have the ability to be cross-trained that way, to find the best position for them. We have mostly youth in the secondary overall. It's not an overly experienced group. And so to find your roles and maybe find the best fit for an individual, it's our responsibility to give them an opportunity to do those things. So the cross-training will continue. You'd love to circle this guy's here, this guy's here. I don't think we're going to have that luxury here for a while.
Looks like she's about Caleb.
Excites me, sir. I think a number of things. I think, obviously, gained some good experience last year. I think anytime you're talking about a freshman going into a sophomore year, what quantifies as a good freshman year does not qualify as a good sophomore year. You kind of everything's graded on the curve as a freshman, which you should. That's okay. But the one thing as you go through, his body's changing. I think he's developing that way. Coach Weiler in the weight room, I think he's taken to that and have an understanding that there's a physical aspect that that he needed to be developed, and he had to take a full participation in that development, and he's done those things. Has mental aptitude to make calls, get lined up. He's shown the ability to be physical. He has range. He has instincts. I think he has a chance to be one of the better defensive backs in this conference, certainly. If you could, profile-wise, from a length standpoint, speed standpoint, he possesses a lot of the things, attributes that you're looking for at that spot. So we're awfully excited.
Been any transformations on this?
No, it's interesting. Xavier Alfred's a guy that was hurt most of the spring, but just physical development, you just see it. I think across the board, probably the exceptions are the ones that didn't, from a physical development that you don't see. And so I think we've checked those boxes. Now, it's also, there's a starting point going into off-season, and so that baseline's low, and we say this all the time, if you put the bar low, then you'll be excited by everything. So, are we where we need to be? No. From a strength standpoint, no. It's better than it was. I thought over 8 months, realistically, and probably a little bit of a tinge of being unrealistic in terms of what we can get done in that time. I think we probably moved the needle a little bit further than we had hoped. However, we got to be bigger, faster, stronger as we go through this thing. So, which means we got to develop that. We can't stop at this moment. As we go into the season and say we're not going to make it stronger this fall, that can't happen. We can't maintain. We're not where we need to be that way. And so that's an ongoing, continuing process of development.
How about transformations in terms of maturity and leadership and maybe player accountability? Can you talk about anybody who's kind of stepped up in your eyes?
Yeah, to circle an individual again, I would highlight the group. I think one of the things that we've spent a lot of time on is being the USC football players have a part-time job. This is not something you clock in and clock out of. And so what that refers to as much as anything from an accountability standpoint, it's accountability for the classroom. It's being on time. It's not making evaluations when the coach says to do X, Y, or Z. Well, that applies when we're on the football field or we're in the weight room, but that doesn't apply from a social standpoint, from an academic standpoint. And so I think, once again, the guys are gaining an understanding of that. I don't think there's been a lot of pushback. But just as you say on the field, every play, every day, it's the same thing when it comes to all aspects of whether it's being on time or handling your business in the classroom or making sure every workout is done at an elite level. And it's one of those moments where it's, Coach, you mean every workout? Yeah, we mean every workout, And so I think the guys have an understanding that way. It's always a work in progress, and part of that is just, taking over this new program and that, so expect it. But I think by and large, guys certainly are getting the gist that what we say we need, and there's an expectation that it's daily, not sometimes.
Is it pretty well where you expected it to be by this point?
I think, again, being from a realist, you got to have some level of realism in this thing. You also got to make sure that you don't dumb it down too much just so you feel good. So the bar's got to be higher. So if you set the bar from a championship standpoint, the team, specifically defensively, that you say goes into fall camp, with that in mind, I think we still have to earn that. I don't think that's something from whether it's a conditioning, strength, from an execution standpoint, as I go back through and look at, kind of rerun the spring cut-ups, there's not enough plays where you see 11 guys doing the right thing. And so what's that mean? That means that this fall camp has to just be a critical piece to everything that we do in 2022. What will become in 2022 will have everything to do with having a different conversation at the end of this one. Talking about, again, not moving the needle development-wise, not moving the needle further from an accountability standpoint or from an execution standpoint, then we're going to have some difficulties. I think we have an advantage these 8 months, but certainly have a long way to go.
We talked a lot about Korey. Do you feel you ever saw him at full strength in the spring from that injury, or are you thinking maybe we'll see a different level?
I think we need to see a different level. I think he would agree with me. I think you see a big athlete, a strong athlete, a fast athlete, and a guy that's has the physical traits. He's willing to be physical. He's got to be available more. He knows that. I think he had a good summer. He's going to have a great fall camp, and obviously we're excited about him. Great kid. His buy-in's been tremendous. I think the needle's pointing up, but he has the ability to have that needle get blown off the charts. So Coach Maine does a great job with that role, and so work in progress like a lot of young guys. So I think in a lot of ways his transition, or better yet, transformation is that freshman to sophomore year, which is probably the biggest jump that a lot of guys make. So whether it's a new program or new coaching staff, I think part of it's just natural to youth and going in that second year. But we got to expedite that because we need him to be a major member of this defense.
What kind of role do you see for Brandon Pili?
Yeah, he was coming off an injury last year, was limited in spring. I think he's one of those guys who's got to feel a sense of urgency going into his final year of eligibility. He's played a lot of football here, relatively speaking. Certainly, now how productive has he been over the course of that time? That's the challenge to him. So he's a guy that, once again, he has to be available for us to coach him, and he's got to be willing to not fall into the trap of this is how I played over the previous 4 years. Because we have a higher bar and higher expectations for those individuals. Now, his buy-in's been good. I keep using that term, which I don't particularly like to, but it's probably the most accurate. But as we tell our guys, this is a contract year for him. There's either a contract waiting for him at the end of it or something. So his sense of urgency has to go up.
Eric Gentry is kind of a unique body size for linebacker. What is his upside there, and how does that help him maybe do things that others can't?
Yeah, I think the upside is I'm not sure there's a limit to it. I really don't. The length, the speed, the unique thing is obviously seeing him play some college football. That goes back to kind of the things that you used to not be able to do. Transfer, you actually see him play at our level all the way in the conference, and so his physical presence and ability to put pads on people for that size, and in some respects lack of size. He still needs to get bigger. He needs to fill out to be the type of player he needs to be. And part of it, again, freshman to sophomore. So some of that's natural. But we're awfully excited about him. I think he's a guy that can have a major impact for us. We expect him to. We'll try him at a couple different spots in terms of that inside linebacker. Find the best position for him. He's got to have a great full camp to compete that way. But length and speed, those are two major qualities that you look for in every position. But you notice him walking out of the locker room. He looks a little different than a lot of guys with that height. So we're excited.
We didn't ask about Jacoby Covington earlier. Where is he slotted? He's a versatile guy.
Yeah, so he's going to be in the corner room initially. As you look at him relative to the position, has some length, has some experience, has size, can run. A guy we've known about for a long time, recruited, and so have an opportunity to compete out there. And like all those guys, we'll see. Try to get the best find out there, but the kind of pencil in that corner right now, I think it's something he's comfortable with, and I think he can have an impact.
Korey talked about earlier was he wanted to kind of shift his mindset to be a little bit more professional and kind of just off the field, things he needed to take care of in terms of his body and off-season stuff. Just how important is that kind of mentality switch, especially for as highly touted a recruit he was coming into college? Like, he's not the only big man on campus anymore.
That's right. That's right. And it's critical. You know, it's one of those deals for our guys. And we'll tell them, you know, talent is a great starting point, but ultimately, as you get to our level, there needs to be more kind of in your tank, or more in your bank account from the standpoint of, you know, how do you handle yourself on a day-in, day-out basis. You know, you're not necessarily the strongest guy in the locker room anymore, you know, but you can be, so you got to work towards that. Your speed relative to the other guys on the field all of a sudden gets equated a little bit as opposed to what it was in high school. And so all those things that are just natural to, you know, anytime you have a transition from high school to college to the next level, which obviously the anticipation for all our guys, that's something that, as expected as it might be, oftentimes, you know, comes as a roadblock to young players. And so that's a work in progress, and it's something that certainly we make him aware of it, and I think he's starting to feel that, you know, as you go through it, and making sure that from an approach standpoint that no excuses, that we trumpet quite a bit defensively. That he understands that, and I think he's reaping the benefits of that. As we've gone through summer, it's going to continue.
Is Latrell staying at safety?
So Latrell, he'll start at safety this fall camp in terms of positions, and he'll have an opportunity. He's taking reps at nickel, he's taking reps at corner. So similar to a couple guys that way, but no, we'll take a look at the safety as well.
You mentioned earlier that your priorities defensively are stopping the run and getting takeaways. To what extent, and I haven't figured out the exact right wording, but to what extent do takeaways take priority over slowing the pass? Because it's a risk to get a takeaway, to get an interception.
No, it can be, and you know, I think as you look at it, you know, stop the run, does that means, you know, 9-man front and load the box and say you can't run the ball, and if they throw the ball, they throw the ball, and then we'll never take that approach. I mean, obviously the college game, as you look at it, the ball's being thrown a whole lot more. You know, in so many ways, it's the ability to stop the run without having to necessarily pressure it, stopping the run, you know, with the ability to do it with 7 and 8 man front, so that you're able to have enough guys in the secondary to have some layers about you, and feel like you're comparable from a pass game standpoint. And then part of it too is making sure through the pass games that, you know, one of the chief ways to stop the pass is pass rush. And so it's all levels of defense included in every aspect of things. We've never looked at takeaways as a means of risk reward. You know, it's securing tackles, second guy getting the ball out. You know, same thing in the pass game, making sure that, you know, a top-down defense. We use the phrase depth equals confidence, specifically in zone coverage. If I have depth and I have confidence to attack the ball, and have a right to do that because I'm playing top-down. And so we don't look at it through that lens of risk. However, you got to make sure that you're securing tackles and those things. And one of the ways that you increase your takeaway count is making sure that it's not solo tackles, gang tackles, and that, which goes back to effort, which goes back to guys training the football, playing the type of defense.
Is there a spot or maybe a couple spots where you're kind of especially curious about position battles and how guys are going to show up?
I'm not sure there's a position I'm not curious about. I mean, I think there's a number of guys that have shown flashes. You know, one of the things that is critical, specifically defensively, is, you know, the consistency aspect. When you circle a guy's best play, you can say, okay, well, if we can get that out of him every single down, then he could be a high-level player for USC. And then, you know, at his worst, though, you know, can get his speed. And so, consistency-wise, just as I go through and then we evaluate, you know, spring in particular, there's not enough guys to kind of put that feather in their cap and check that box and say, okay, you know, he's a consistent player. Tuli in the front is one that certainly is, but beyond that, you're a lot of, and some of that just stems from, you know, learning in the spring and all that. So, you know, one of the things we talk about after spring, the number one thing we just need to put more reps on. You know, give these guys an opportunity to, you know, do it a second time, a third time, 100th time as we go through fall camp. But no, I think there's certainly more question marks than there are guys that we certainly say that's the guy at that spot, which is okay, and that's what fall camp is for. before, and probably was to be expected. And that's also a challenge to our guys to establish themselves that way at whatever spot, particularly on the defense.
Has this 8-month period been kind of a whirlwind?
It absolutely has. It absolutely has. I mean, it started on a plane flight late November, and you're ripping and running from there, and you're trying to, in every way, shape, and form, maximize your roster and the potential for the 22 season. And so that's everything we've done up until this point is kind of through that lens. And so what that creates is the importance behind every single workout, obviously every day, every meeting, just how critical those things are, and then it all leads up into this. One of the messages for our guys for tomorrow is it's not day one. It's practice one. It's not day one. And so we can't fall into that trap. But it's day one. I know this is 8 months going. And to your point, yeah, it's been chaotic. It's been adding pieces, enhancing the pieces that we got, fixing some issues, and that never goes away. But we got to make sure that it looks that way tomorrow, and then obviously on football.
Have you had a chance to catch your breath at all?
No, I think so. I think this is what we signed up for. Been in these situations before, and a lot of credit to the current players. They've been a good group to coach. I think, as we say, it's fix or enhance. The things you're deficient at, you got to fix. The things you're good at, you have to enhance. I think the guys have accepted that, and so that makes it easy to go in the meeting room, easy to go in the weight room, easy to go in the practice field with them when they got the right mindset. I think everybody is in complete agreement as to what this program can be and should be, including the players. But now it's time to go do it.